The City of Norco City Council meeting agenda budget workshop for Wednesday, June 6, here on teleconference call location out of Annapolis, Maryland, with Robin Grunmeyer, also Mayor Pro Tem. So I call this meeting to order, and the roll call for City Clerk.
Council members Newton, Hannah, Bash, Mayor Pro Tem Robin Grunmeyer,
Here.
and Mayor Hoffman.
I'm here, thank you. We can hear you, Robin, thank you.
All members are present.
Pledge of Allegiance with Council Member Greg Newton.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. On the City Council business items, this is a workshop. We're going to continuation of the draft capital improvement program and the budget presentation for fiscal year 2019-2023. Gina, that would be yours.
Yes, I will introduce. We are going to continue the conversation from the last budget study session. I just would like to find out if you'd like to continue with the CIP portion first or with the budget reduction.
Let's go with the CIP, then we'll finish that up, and then council members and let the public, if they have any comments, and then we'll go into the general.
Okay, great. I'll turn it over to Chad.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, City Council. As you may recall, the last meeting we did finish up a discussion reviewing, in general, from the staff's perspective, of all the proposed projects for the next fiscal year. And at this time, we're happy to answer any questions you may have.
Okay, council have any questions? Starting down there with you, Greg.
Not at this time. Thank you.
Kevin? Berwin?
No, sir.
Robin?
No, not at this time.
All right, and I don't have any either, so take it back, and this is a public hearing, so I'm going to open up public hearing. If it's a study session, I'm sorry, study sessions, but we will take comments from the public on the CIP portion of the budget. If anybody has any comments, any cards?
Mayor, I do not have any cards on this item.
Not seeing any cards, I'll bring it back to the dais. Greg? Kevin? Berwin?
I'm good.
And Robin?
Good.
All right, I'm good. So, we're going to close that portion of the workshop study, and then we'll go on to the general operating budget. I think it's you, Gina, or Andy?
It will be Andy. We just need the clicker, I think.
Steve's got it.
Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council, if you remember last time we were reviewing a list of items that I was recommending for the City Council to consider for purposes of budget reductions. And before I recap those items again, I'd like to say that in the interest of time, there are three potential ways that we could handle this. One is the City Council can accept all the recommended items of reduction, and if you do that, these items will be built into the budget for fiscal year 2018-2019, and will be brought back to you as part of your approval for the budget for the upcoming fiscal year. That's one way of doing it. The City Council could also direct staff to not make any of these proposed reductions, and instead revisit these items as part of our mid-year budget process, which will be sometime in February of 2019. And that, of course, would depend on what is happening with our revenues and or expenditures. And depending on what happens then, these reductions may be made, or some of them may be made, or all of them may be made, or additional reductions may be necessary. So that is the second option. The third option would be for the City Council to review all the items that are listed here, which are, again, I will recap and determine which of those items that the City Council wants to incorporate into the proposed FY 2017-2018 budget. So with that, I am going to, again, highlight the proposed items of reduction. Again, these items are items that have been put together in consultation with various department heads. The first item here, as you know, for the last many years, the city has been setting aside money into a trust fund to pay for fund our retiree medical benefits liability. And we opened a section, Internal Revenue Section 115 Trust account. And into that account, the city has been contributing money on an annual basis to help fund the liability related to retiree medical. The general fund budget for next fiscal year 2018-2019 includes $300,000 to be again deposited into that account during the fiscal year. Again, my recommendation is for us to defer this contribution and not make it for fiscal year 2018-2019. The second item deals with our contributions to Equipment Replacement Fund. And again, as part of our annual budget process, the general fund contributes to the Equipment Replacement Fund based on the number of vehicles that are assigned to the general fund. And the purpose of this contribution from the general fund to the Equipment Replacement Fund is that when these equipments come up for replacement, the city would have already had the money on hand to pay for the purchase of these vehicles instead of buying them on a pay-as-you-go basis, which may happen or may not happen depending on each fiscal year's budget situation. So the proposed amount to be contributed to that Equipment Replacement Fund from the general fund for fiscal year 2018-2019 is $91,000. And again, because again, we've made some progress to the extent that we are now able to replace vehicles at least close to the time they are due for replacement, as opposed to not being able to replace them. I am recommending that we defer this contribution to the Equipment Replacement Fund for 2018-2019 to help address the budget shortfall that we are looking at for that upcoming fiscal year. In the various departments, beginning with the City Manager's Department, I am recommending that we eliminate travel and conferences. The budget for that for this upcoming fiscal year is $3,000. In the city clerk's office, I'm recommending that there is a part-time position that is currently included in the budget, and that position be eliminated for fiscal year 2018-2019. In addition to that, overnight training and conferences also be eliminated for the fiscal year. In Human Resources Department or Division, I'm recommending again that travel-related expenditures for the fiscal year be eliminated from the budget. Another area where I'm looking to reduce the budget is the outside legal counsel as well as the city attorney's office. And this primarily deals with the cost to litigate code enforcement cases. Based on some recent experiences, I believe that we can find more creative ways by using existing staff resources and working with the residents involved in code cases to reduce the number of cases that are actually referred for litigation purposes, and subsequently reduce the budget for that program. In fiscal and support services, I am recommending again that training, non-essential training, be eliminated from the budget. In addition to that, we are going to advance fund for business license replacement. Those costs will be paid in fiscal year 2018 with the fiscal year 2018 savings. If we do that, then we don't have to budget for it in fiscal year 2019. In Recreation Services Division, recommending reduction in part-time staffing, elimination of conferences and trainings. Again, these do have some negative impact in terms of the number of drivers or the hours, the number of hours that will have the drivers available to deliver documents to City Council and or to Commission members. Part of the recommended reduction in this division also includes doing the Parks and Recs Commission meeting, moving that so that we do it on every other month instead of currently is done on a monthly basis. The Senior Citizens Program or Division, we are recommending the elimination of Party Partners Program, and in addition to reduction in utilities and supplies that are associated with that program as well. In building maintenance, we are recommending a reduction in part-time staffing, eliminate conferences and trainings, and reduce electricity charges, reduce contractual services. This will be primarily for janitorial as well as other services related to building maintenance. We are also recommending a reduction of $21,500 in the Animal Control Division. The way this will be accomplished is by eliminating a part-time customer service clerk, reduction in overtime, and prioritizing our emergency responses so that we can deal with those situations that actually require emergencies. Economic development, again, reduce travel and reduce supplies and services, and reduce the amount that is currently being proposed to be spent on historic resources consulting. And in the planning department, eliminate travel and save $1,200. And finally, in the sheriff's department, the current budget FY 2017-2018, as well as the proposed budget for FY 2018-2019 includes a community service officer position, which is not yet filled. Again, the recommendation would be to have that position not funded for the upcoming fiscal year. There is one item that has been taken out of this list that was previously included, and that was for $27,000 savings from eliminating a part-time position in the planning department. As it turns out, the recommended budget does not include that $27,000, so I can't be reducing something that is already not in the budget. So that is why these numbers have changed from what you saw the last time to what you are saying before you this afternoon. With that, we can answer any questions and then look for City Council direction to in terms of how you want to approach this.
Okay, Greg, I'm going to start down there with you.
Thank you. Mayor, do you mind if I just go down the list?
No, I think that would be the easiest. We got time.
Andy, on the retiree medical benefits, I'd made a note, because I think you've made great progress. And in a few years, we're going to be, maybe not golden, but we're going to be in really good shape. So I was going to propose that we just set aside $150,000, that we fund half that amount, and then look at the other half mid-year. That was kind of the way I was leaning on that one. The second item on vehicle replacement, I do have a couple of questions on that. I'm fine with delaying the $91,000, but I did have a question in our budget on page 17. This was in internal funds, and under vehicle replacement, we show a beginning balance of $3,108,000, and then expenditures for 2018, 2019 of $814,674. And I went to the memo, I believe it was page 77, and I can't find the $814,000 that, or the items that make up the $814,000 for expenditures in this next year.
So, Gina, this one is a combination of two items. A combination of two items, and I don't know if they exactly add up to that amount. This will be the amount that is of equipment that is proposed to be purchased during the fiscal year. By the way, this is not just the general fund. The bulk of this equipment comes from enterprise funds, which will be funded by set-asides from water and sewer funds. The remaining portion will be the cost of maintenance and operations for equipment. So this will be your, again, maintenance charges, whether it's gas or the cost to repair these vehicles. Okay. And all of those, if you add them from all the respective funds, should equal that $814,000. Okay. So then, which then brought me back to that we have a beginning balance of $3,100,000. And that amount seemed more like a surplus to me. Is that related to anything in reserves, or do we really need to have a $3 million balance in vehicle replacement? So, yes, it is related to reserves. As I said, the idea is that you contribute these funds on an annual basis, and you draw from that to make your equipment purchases. So essentially, the remaining $2.7 million would are amounts that represent what has already been contributed for equipment that are to be replaced in the future. Okay, so the way I was looking at it was, if we had a big ticket item like a fire truck, and I was just trying to hold that, say, like $500,000. To me, it was, could we not use some of this internal funding under vehicle replacement to backfill our shortage? Well, number one, two things. It would happen. And number one is that the shortage we are talking about is general fund shortage. A lot of these monies I anticipate are earmarked for equipment that is assigned to the water and sewer funds. The big ticket item here that is in the general fund would be the amounts that were contributed prior to us contracting out for fire services. So this is the amount that was set aside in the equipment replacement fund before that service was contracted out. But what we are doing, as you know, is that we are required under the contract with CAL FIRE to contribute annually towards equipment replacement. So we are drawing those annual required contributions out of this account to pay the contributions that we are required to pay to CAL FIRE for future fire engine replacement. So
I'm sorry, do you know approximately what that amount is yearly? in our
currently is about over $50,000 annually. 52, 53,
Okay.
yes.
So, I mean, I couldn't remember that. So we're obligated to CAL FIRE for $50,000 a year.
That's correct.
Okay.
So I think there were two parts to the answer to the question. Then whatever is left that is earmarked for equipment that is funded out of the general fund, if we use any portions of that amount, then it would impact our ability to replace those equipment in the future. So for example, if there are equipments that are due for replacement next year, and if we use half the amount that is in the reserve, then we will not be able to replace those equipment come next year.
Then I'll ask this question. What's the approximate amount that we have allocated for replacement for next year?
I don't have that amount, and that's something that is done as part of the budget process. There was a presentation on that, right?
Yes. We have $513,000 total included.
For next year.
Correct. And we did present the vehicles in the last budget presentation. And there's a couple of minor items in there, but generally it's Water and Sewer Division vehicles for $369,353. A skip loader, John Deere skip loader, 1998 lowboy trailer, a 2005 Ford F50 with a Rugby small dump body, one 2006 3/4 ton GMC pickup, one 2007 GMC truck with crane and compressor, and one message board.
And what would the total dollar amount of those be?
The estimated amount is $369,000.
So $269,000 and $50,000 for CAL FIRE and
another $78,000 for animal control, 2006 Ford F-150 for building maintenance, and a 2005 GMC truck and box for animal control.
So,
and a few other items that aren't listed there.
So approximately, we're not even at $1 million.
No.
Okay.
No, not for current year proposed replacement.
So I would like, if we could in the next couple of weeks, look a little closer at that, because it seems like we still have a surplus in that internal fund and still meet our obligations for next year.
Yeah, again, the amount, let me make sure that is clear, and I'm not necessarily disagreeing with what you're saying in terms of looking at it closer to see if there are some funds that can be gotten out of that fund to help fund the budget deficit. But the amount that is earmarked for next year is just for next year. Some of these vehicles have 10-year replacement cycles. They have 7-year replacement cycle. Some of them we could be into the 7th year out of the 10-year replacement cycle. So we should have on hand amount equal to 7 years worth of the cost or depreciation on that vehicle in order to be able to replace it on the 10th year.
And then maybe we should be looking at extending that replacement cycle. I mean, I look at, my truck's 12 years old. Berwin just got rid of his truck that was, 40 years old.
42.
Was in 1940 something, right? I mean, maybe it's time we squeeze the lemon a little more, but at the same time I understand that especially in public works, they need the proper equipment and tools to do the job, but maybe that cycle doesn't have to be every 7 years.
Quite frankly, we've been doing that for a number of years. Brian can speak to that because he has some of the equipment in the general fund. Some of these go way beyond their replacement cycle, and because we have not generated enough money to replace them, we continue to defer the replacement on those vehicles.
Well, Brian's a good Okie. He knows about duct tape and baling wires. So, just moving on. On the part-time positions, whether it's in clerk's office or recreational services or parks and that, I'd like us to look a little closer at maybe breaking out some of the costs for overnight training. I'm not ready to give up the part-time positions yet. I think they fill a critical need, and it's not a big expense with minimal benefits. So if there's a way that, say like under city clerk, out of that 17,000, you could, Andy, come back to me and tell me how much of that is the part-time position, how much is training, and the same with some of the parks and recreational services. Kind of break out that. You know, we don't have to do it this afternoon, but if you could just give me that information. On the city attorney, we've made great strides over the years where we came from no code enforcement with previous councils to where we're finally getting a handle on it 7 days a week. Could we look at this as, would it be more cost effective to use the city attorney in lieu of the outside attorneys?
They all cost money. But the...
Some of them charge more in an hour.
That's right.
Don't get it back either.
That's right. They're all pretty expensive, both of them. But anyways, the proposed reduction is not affecting staff, which is the guys in the field that are doing code enforcement. I'm not recommending a reduction, right. So we still have our full-time as well as our part-time, which is a lot more than we have had in many years.
Correct.
Past. Okay, so we are certainly given the priority and the attention to that program that it deserves. What I am recommending is again, with respect to the actual litigation of cases, that staff, again, me working with the building official, the fire inspectors, find a little more creative ways to deal with this issue rather than litigating all of them. Or most of them. I think there are opportunities for a reduction there, and that is what I'm proposing. And if at the somewhere in the middle of the fiscal year, we believe that there needs to be adjustments, I can always come back to the city council to make those adjustments.
Yeah. For what it's worth, I mean, I concur with that approach. I mean, that's the city attorney's philosophy anyway, is litigation is always an absolute last resort. There's a better way of resolving it, and you get the benefit of saving some money, although hopefully in our case most of the money comes back through liens or payment, but that's a much better way of doing business anyway.
Okay, and then this one bothers me on senior citizens, on eliminating party partners, and then the part-time rec specialist. Do those two go hand in hand, or is the part-time rec specialist also used for the senior center and the seniors?
It goes hand in hand. So the part-time specialist primary responsibilities is the Party Partners program. However, they do help and back up and support in the office.
And out of that 30,000, how much is the Party Partners? Isn't like
it's almost
50?
All of it, actually.
Is it?
Out of the $21,500, I'm sorry, out of the senior, you're looking at the senior center, right? 30,200?
Yeah, 30,000.
I'll give you that exact breakdown. 17,378 is the part-time salaries, and then we reduced the conferences, which was $445, and then for Party Partners events, this is materials and stuff, is $5,000, and then out of buildings and grounds another $3,100. So out of that, almost $18,000 of that is staff cost.
Okay. I don't know what to recommend there. at this time. Building maintenance, I guess I have a little heartburn on reducing electricity charges, and like I said earlier, on the part-time staffing. Our thermostats in City Hall, are they all programmable?
Yes, and lockable.
Okay. So that we could still keep it at a comfort level. We don't need to, if no one's here on a Sunday afternoon, obviously they don't need to run, but they're 7-day programmable?
Yes, we can program it by day and by hours.
Okay. And then contractual services, janitorial, when you wrote air conditioning for contractual services, so the last time we talked, it was, can the fire department empty their own, garbage cans? What are we talking about contractual services for air conditioning? I mean, if they break or they need to be maintained, that's a fact of life.
Yeah, anything that, the contractual services reduction here is at $25,680, and it's primarily related to janitorial services reduction. In all of our M&O, other operating costs, we've cut here and there. The problem we have is when something breaks or comes down, it means that I'll spend what I have, and then I'm coming to you at mid-year or somewhere saying, look, I need an appropriation to fix X, Y, Z, because we've spent what we had to so far this year.
I mean, so I'm assuming you have a complete schedule for our maintenance crews, not subcontractors, but our maintenance guys that change filters and...
That's correct. We do that in-house.
Okay.
And then we call for, there's certain things like for compressors and stuff, those will, on the maintenance on those, we'll use our contractor because it's a little bit above what our capabilities. But for filtering, cleaning the units every year, we do that all in-house. And then, and we do that with our building maintenance part-time employees. They've been trained to do that, and they'll handle that. Where we have problems with is when we get into really the nuts and bolts of a unit or the compressors and that type of thing. And the problem is our existing inventory is pretty old, so it's getting to that point where repairs are getting, more expensive than what it almost would cost to do a unit.
Well, that's kind of the catch-22 that I see. If we reduce part-time funding and part-time help, we're going to reduce that maintenance level. And
yeah, in this actual budget in the 737, there is no reduction in part-time staff. It's only contractual. That there is an action, and that is related to janitorial services. So what I've started to do since our last meeting is sit down with the contractor, and say, look, what if we adjust, as opposed to 7 days a week, we go to 4 days a week or 3 days a week, and look at ways of reducing this number, which is this $25,000, providing still a service out there, but it'll be less. So I guess the point of that, you may have to empty your own trash can means because they're not going to do it on those days. You need that type of thing. But we would be reducing service for certain facilities. In other words, and as I break it down, for example, mop every day. So 4 days, City Hall, for example, is mopped 4 days a week. Sheriff's is 7 days a week, et cetera. City Hall may only be mopped twice a week. That's different than a dust mop. So dust mopping is different in between. So when we break down to that level, or the sheriff's office, locker rooms are cleaned 7 days a week, but the rest of the sheriff's offices are only cleaned 4 days a week, that type of thing. So that's what I have to get into, those sort of weeds, in order to reduce this contract by that much. And that's citywide for all janitorial.
your locker room needs to be mopped 7 days a week?
Yeah, that's new. We're happy to work with whatever's needed for the city.
Okay. So Eric's volunteering to empty the wastebaskets. So
Our magic number is 25,000.
Slash that, Brian. And then just finishing up economic development. What do we, part of this is Bill Wilkman, correct? Out of the 15,000, what portion is Bill Wilkman as historic consultant? Thank you.
So the way I'm looking at this is that we have approximately $32,000 in contractual services, basically for historical related purposes. I believe a lot of the work we needed to do has already been done with respect to the nomination to the National Register. So that's why I'm recommending cutting that back a little more than what we've already cut it. We spent projecting to spend about $38,000 this current fiscal year, and with $32,000 for next year projected, and again, a lot of work was already done this fiscal year. I believe we can again ratchet that down by about $15,000.
Okay.
17.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that we're not, when we say eliminate travel and related materials, that we're not taking away from our economic development department to go out and hustle new business and do their job.
That will continue to happen, although we are looking at scaling back our involvement with respect to ICSC. I think one of the options we are looking at is perhaps not actually having a booth, okay, at the conference. We've done that over the last couple of years, and we believe that, again, that we can get better use of our money if we just keep it to scheduling targeted meetings at this conference.
Okay. And okay, I'm glad you made the change in planning. That means we're going to keep the part-time position, correct, in planning department?
Yeah, because at least it's still under discussion, in that it's not in the proposed budget numbers. So if we decide to go with the reduction, okay, the proposed budget numbers will remain as is. But if we don't go with the reduction, then that money will be added back to the budget that will be presented to you in 2 weeks.
Okay, so my position is that I don't want to eliminate the part-time position in planning. Nothing personal, but you can't keep up as it is. You need all the help you can get. And then the last one on the CSO position, when we first talked about that, and I think the mayor brought it up previously, was that we were pretty well assured that we could sustain having an additional deputy and a CSO, and I think it's critical that we still move forward on that CSO, even though we don't have a time frame to fill that vacancy. Is that correct, Eric?
Actually, we're prepared to fill the traffic enforcement deputy at the beginning of the year.
Correct.
And shortly after that, we should be able to fill that seat.
Okay. That's all I have right now. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Robin, I'm going to bounce over to you to keep you in the loop. You still there, Robin?
Yes, I'm here.
I caught you off guard.
Yeah, I have to hit the unmute button.
Okay.
So I guess I'm on the same page as Greg with a couple things. On the vehicle replacement, I feel like we need to stretch out the term on those. Even with my vehicles at work, we're going closer to 15 years before they even think about replacement on them. But on that same note, to keep a vehicle that long, the maintenance schedule is critically important in making sure they're maintained properly so that you can get the need. As far as part-time, I think we're working our staff quite a bit, and that the part-time help is going to be necessary to make sure we're serving the residents the way that we need to. As far as the travel and some of those things, I'm fine with making those reductions at this time. And I think that's about it on the notes that I have on this end.
So nothing further?
No.
Okay. Berwin, since I'm over there, let you
Yeah, I don't know about the vehicle maintenance. What did you say, 7 years is what they're, when you trade out of vehicles, it's 7 years, or what you said?
I believe it's 7 years, 80,000 miles. Yeah, in the vehicle.
Well, I don't have a problem with going a year or two longer if they can. I think you can determine at the end of that 7 years or 80,000 miles, whatever it is, I think you can determine what kind of shape it's in by how many times you've had to put it in the shop.
Yeah, I think just for council's benefit, in reviewing the vehicles, I'm just speaking on behalf of the Public Works, which is really not impacted by in this discussion, but pretty much my experience is each department stretching out vehicles way beyond their expectation of life. Some of the vehicles, frankly, go from department to department because maybe we're not using a truck because it doesn't meet our needs, but maybe it goes to parks and then they use it. So there's certainly, we're all trying to squirrel away the nuts and try to reuse things as much as possible. Generally on the funding annually of the replacement, usually we try to set it up initially when you get a new vehicle. How long do you think you're going to reasonably keep it? It's going to be anywhere from, depending on the type of use, 7 to 10 years. On average, I would guess. Sometimes it gets stretched out much farther than that. Sometimes it's a lot shorter because maybe that vehicle, say a tractor, just gets beat up and it needs to be replaced sooner. So it's kind of a moving scale, but I think and it pretty much errs on the side of it's going to last a lot longer than and we try to push it to last longer than it may have been funded for. But it pretty much, I could say equivocally, most all our stuff is run to the ground. It's not just replaced because it reaches 80,000 miles. We don't even use that as a criteria. It's just not reasonable because if it runs, keep it.
Right. Okay, and on the part-time, I hate to eliminate any part-time help because I know that our staff is short. They have a lot of work to get done, and I think what part-time we get on them is definitely a help for those folks. And with the reducing the funding on the code cases, you said that would you want to reduce it on the attorney's fees for taking it to court. Is that what you said? All right. How would you do that? I mean, you give these people a chance to settle without going to court, and what kind of success rate we have on that, John? You guys getting them to settle before we spend money?
Actually, in Norco, just based on my experience, that most code cases do have some resolution before I ever see them. I mean, right now, and Andy might know better than I do, or Brian, that they're probably only, 5 or 6 active cases that I have. And as I said, I'd discourage litigation under any circumstances. We wanted to resolve it before that. But unfortunately, like with the Rodriguez place, you have to go to court. And the good news with Rodriguez, we appoint a receiver, and ultimately, hopefully within the next month or so, there will be a sale of the property, and the attorney's fees and other city costs will be reimbursed.
Right, and I know over in Brian's department of animal control, there's been a couple of cases through the years. The
property. Yeah, one in particular that the horse case, which just didn't have any choice.
Well, I know that was a double. That went once and then went again, didn't it?
Yeah.
The same.
And we have a lien against the property in those amounts. The problem is, so does the IRS, and so does the mortgage holder. And in fact, I guess it's probably not surprise news. That particular one is now on the verge of foreclosure.
That's what I was going to ask. Are they still in town?
We're trying to convince the court that our lien takes precedence over the mortgage lien, but it's going to be a tough road to hoe.
Right. Well, I hate to see any of that stuff. I mean, if we can eliminate going to court, I'm all for that. And so far, it looks like you've been doing pretty good, except on just a couple of 3 of them, and that wasn't your fault. It just run into a wall on that. And the party partners, I hate to get rid of that program. How many people participate in that, Brian? About 25 or 30?
I believe there's like over 70 that are registered. However, it depends. Every other Friday we have the event and the program, and so you may have 20, 30, you may have 50 who show up for that night. So it varies from week to week, but on average, I would say there's 30 plus on every other Friday who attend that.
Right, and that's probably the only enjoyment some of those people get out of life entertainment on that. So, Andy, is there a way that instead of eliminating that one, that you said we might wait until February, mid-year, go to mid-year and see how things are, or on some of those deals? I hate to get rid of a lot of that myself.
Yeah, unfortunately, this is a year-round program, Brian.
Yeah, it's a year-round program.
Yeah,
the one thing about this program is that it reaches a population not only in our community but also in Corona and some of the surrounding areas. Over the past, it was eligible for community development block grant funds. It no longer is eligible for that. The city of Corona used to fund almost 3/4 of the program. They no longer fund it. A major portion of our participants are from Corona. They are coming from housing units such as Peppermint Ranch and facilities like that actually transport them to programs like this. So it's been a great program, and it's one we're very proud of in this community. It doesn't serve, though, a lot of Norco residents. So when I had to look at this, and I look at our transportation program versus this, and our transportation program how it deals with seniors locally as well as the military and handicap, and you try to look at how do you make some reductions. This one is the one that I would recommend, one, because I'm not dealing with Norco residents. However, from a humanistic or community services program, it's an excellent program. It meets a big need. It just, over the years, we had funding that came elsewhere, and as those funding sources drew up, and we actually, if you recall, we even had some people who actually gave us endowments towards that program. But those funds are just not available, so the general fund has had to pick up the balance of that cost for the program.
Okay, you said that Corona no longer helps us on that.
That's correct. And they used to actually provide as part of their community development block grant money.
What do we do for Corona if we quit paying them that would make them squeal? I mean,
well, they funded it because they felt this program was worthwhile, and a lot of their residents participated in the program. So that for many, many years, they funded part of that program through their CDBG money. At some point, they felt that they no longer could do that. And in our city, the problem with community development block grant, after a while, they make you divert your programming money now to other types of community events or programming. So we no longer could even use our own CDBG money to backfill this program. So now it's completely funded through the general fund.
Okay, well, that's all I got. I just hate to see that part of it go away if we can hang on to it, but I understand money's money.
Chip Bruin?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Kevin?
So on the first one, the way I look at the retiree medical benefits is that's a way to assure employees that we care that down the line they'll be taken care of. And my amount, 150, I mean, that would be fine, but I think at least we should make a payment forward of $25,000, $50,000, something like that. I think it's a way of saying, look, we're going to stay ahead of the game. We know the value of this, and as we all know, going to League of Cities meetings, almost no city is in compliance. I would like to see at least something put forward on that. In terms of moving the money over, when we buy a truck, Brian, do we just pay cash for it?
Well, we do a purchase order, and that purchase order agreement, they invoice us, and we pay them. We write them a
So
check.
if we got really, is that why we get good deals on the vehicles and stuff?
Well, we bid. All of our vehicles are bidded. And
We're not able to buy a truck on time and that kind of stuff.
No.
I was just curious. So I'm kind of intrigued by the idea of moving money over. We'd asked that question, actually, Berwyn, about 4, 5, 6 years ago, and there was a reason we couldn't do that, why we couldn't move the money over, but I'm interested in that. City manager, I mean, if you're okay, I have this feeling that you're going to keep current with the latest developments anyway, so I think that one, I'm fine with that. I have to concur with Greg, Robin, and Berwyn. The part-time, I'd like to see a breakout of the overnight training. I'm a little bit concerned about the delayed response, but quite honestly, when I get emails from Cheryl at 8:30 at night and she's still at the office, I can't help but think she needs somebody sitting at the desk. And you know what? We need to have people that are helping residents at that desk. Human resources, I'm okay with that. City attorney, I want to make sure we're not talking about an hourly wage for our city attorney, are we?
No.
Okay, just want to make sure. So I'm good. It sounds like you have a plan on that, so I'm good with that. Fiscal support services, I'm confident that things will happen. I don't want to reduce the part-time staffing in Park and Recreation if we can help it. Once again, in my personal opinion, I think we need to combine the two commissions. I really think that, especially after going to ICS, and I'll touch on this, I really believe that we need to combine Park and Rec and at least Trails and bring them together. But I don't have a problem with that. Park maintenance, these are all basic things I understand. I am in touch. I did immediately call the mayor the next day, and they said they had no money to give toward the program. I did suggest that perhaps, since we do serve quite a population of Corona residents, that maybe they take the money they give to the YMCA and give that to us. I am also working with Peppermint Ridge, and we're looking to find funding for that. They're very, very upset, but they feel they might be able to cover some of the costs, so maybe we can revisit that and pull that money in for the Party Partners program. Again, part-time staffing I'm a little concerned about on both building maintenance and animal control. There's one job left under economic development, and I actually believe that we should be working very hard to sell Norco right now, especially after coming from the ICSC conference. I just feel we do not do a good job doing PR on the city. We're reactive at times, and I just don't think people understand that people can't afford to get in here in terms of they want to buy, they want to do business here. There's a lot of very positive things that just aren't being told. There is one job left. We don't know what the Navy's going to do with the report. There is the possibility that Mr. Wilkman might have to just put the prison side on, but that's a very minimal thing. How much are we paying Chuck? That's the
$6,000 a year.
Yeah. See, and I honestly believe that if the historic aspects of the city are going to be protected and grown, I really think one of the things I've recommended, and I'll pay for the bus or whatever we do, but I think the historic committee needs to get out and have a look at what other cities are doing. And I think the first place we need to go is Heritage Park in Corona. And I think think that the Historic Commission, I think at this point it would behoove them to really look at ways to find outside funding sources to promote the history of the city, different things like that. That's really the only way they survive, unless you're, Pasadena or something like that. I also think they need to look at writing grants and things like that. And I can help with that because I did it for years. Limited travel training, I'm fine. I definitely, as long as we're really going to put a person in that police position, then I'm okay with it. But there's a part of me that says, we've gotten along without it for a while, but I'm going to defer to you and Ted in terms of, because I'm not a law enforcement guy, but if you guys tell me that we really need it, then I'm on board. Because I do want to support public safety. I guess the other question on this too that I have, and I know it's hard to know, I'm kind of wondering as the new hotels and stuff begin to hit, do we have any projections on, I know Andy will give me like, oh, it's going to be this much when he knows it's this much, but he wants to be conservative, so I get that. So maybe if in the next couple of weeks we might be able to maybe do some projections on what we think those revenues might possibly be. And that's all I have. I guess I'm in line with the three other council people for the most part. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Kevin. I'm looking at these deals, knowing that two of the items that you've listed, Andy, the retiree medical benefits and the sheriff's total at CSO come to $400,000. It's almost half of the shortage. But they're also, the sheriff's the CSO is probably very critical to, I think, what the mission is for the sheriff's department. And I say that, and I'm going to start at the bottom, is because a CSO can take and do some of the jobs that the patrol deputies are doing right now, especially our set team deputies. Get them out of the admin, put them back in patrol where they can investigate crimes. Are we a high crime city? No. And the reason we're not is because we have two very aggressive set team deputies. They keep it that way, and I'll pat them on the back because they do that, and that's a tribute to Eric and the sergeants coming over here all the time. Those guys bust butt. So, but they need to help. They don't need to be dealing with the administrative functions, and if you don't know what that is, they're out doing neighborhood watch programs, they're out doing the community relations programs, and they're helping with setup for special events. A CSO can do that and do it very well. So I'm not for cutting that, but since you have it almost filled?
Yeah, it should be short. I don't have an exact date or duration, but I know that we are prepared to start going through that process with the interviews.
So we're interviews, you're talking 3-4 months. No one...
But I'm hoping it wouldn't be that long, and understanding that we're going to start this process in the new fiscal.
Okay, all right. As far as the retiree medical benefits, I'm kind of like Greg. I wouldn't mind putting a percentage in there, at least half of it. We don't need to put the whole amount in. But after going to the last League of Cities meeting and having them talk about the fact that you shouldn't be skipping anything, I'm kind of like Kevin. We don't want to get caught on the short end. Andy over the years has done a good job of putting money in there, but we can't stop that. Otherwise, it's easy. Oh, we forgot it. We don't have it this year. Well, we do it. What are we going to do next year? We do it again? No, we can't. So I think this is one item that we should look at the mid-year and maybe at least do a 50% contribution for that. As far as vehicle maintenance and replacement, I've driven our vehicles. Majority of them very well, but I can tell you we have a tractor up there that is a worker safety problem where somebody's going to get hurt on it. And I can understand if we look through there, we got 91,000. If we're going to start doing that, and this goes back to protecting our workers at the same time, we have to make sure they're on good, safe equipment. So if the equipment's not safe, it gets taken out of, it takes out of service. And we have to say, and that's our decision. What happens? If you can't drive the thing, take it out. If we have a problem, then I guess then we have to defer more maintenance down the road on something that can't be fixed. But is that fair to the residents too? I don't know. I don't think so. So we have to weigh this fine thing out. But that would be one area that if we do and take out 91,000, we're going to play. I hope nobody gets hurt. That's the only thing. As far as the training on all these positions and part-time position, I got to leave this up to Andy. We as a city council, leave it to him to manage his staff and the training and things they need. That's his responsibility. I know that there are a lot of part-time positions and training in here that probably, we could skip for this year or at least 6 months down the road. But I think that's what his position as a city manager should be. As far as and I want to know if I'm doing this right. I'm not a city attorney for the code cases. We're just dropping the retainer fee, correct?
No, we're not.
No.
Okay,
No.
that's what I'm trying to see.
No, we're not. What we're doing again is trying to eliminate the number of cases that are litigated. We've been unfortunate this current fiscal year. The reality of it is that most of the money we spend on court cases end up being spent on a handful of cases, maybe less than a dozen actually. Hopefully this year we're going to be a little more fortunate, and like I said, I think there are a couple of instances that I have handled recently with the building inspector, the fire inspector, that brought about some resolution that could have required a city prosecutor, city attorney attention. We'll continue to do that. But that is not saying that we will never have situations where we are going to have cases that go to litigation. That is going to happen. Like I said, it's not a whole lot of those that happen. Again, we've been unfortunate this past year that the ones that we have had to deal with end up costing the city a substantial amount of money.
Yeah. I think the good news is that over the past, 3 or 4 months, that the amount spent from my office on code enforcement has dropped significantly. I mean, it's maybe $1,000 a month, $1,500 a month. And the good news is that, using Rodriguez as an example, that money, which is, somewhere over the years, $30,000 more or less, probably less, we will get back when the property's sold, which will happen, knocking on wood, to judge within the next 30 days.
Okay, so if I understand this right, we'll still, if we have to go to court on these cases, we'll still have an hourly fee.
That's good.
Okay, all right, we're not eliminating it. Okay. Because like Councilman Newton said, we've come a long way on code enforcement. We don't want to go backwards. I understand fiscal support and services, the 20,000 reduction. I do have a problem reducing the commission meetings every month. And especially, you're only just talking about Park and Recs Commission, that's it?
Yes.
Yeah.
An extra couple meetings.
So you're still having an every other month meeting? I can live with that. But it would be something I would like to revisit mid-year to see how we're doing, if it's keeping up or that type of situation. And as far as less drivers, those guys drive around, they provide a service, and your part-time staffing in there, we have to weigh it out. Is part-time staffing costing us more than the overtime? Are you going to pay more overtime to your current staff if you get rid of some of the part-timers?
Depends on if we get a call or not, and then I have to call somebody out, and then there will be overtime.
But can you give us an idea of where we're at? Is that overtime based upon how many times in call-outs that we've had in the park?
They reduced a lot of the calls for services during the week and in the evenings, that when the problem does arise, they also provide several functions on the weekends, which is they pick up debris. They are there for assistance anywhere in the city. They deal with some of the shutoffs. In some cases, they have the ability to shut off. If not, that call will go over to Chad's office, and his people will be called out for overtime in which to turn the water off at those parks or various locations that may have water leaks, because there will be nobody else to do it.
Well, that's what I'm saying. They're performing a valuable service.
Yes.
Okay. Just want the rest of us to understand. When we reduce that part-time staffing, somebody has to pick up the slack, and that will cost us overtime. Or wasted services, maybe further damage, or greater damage, or a lack of it not getting done at all. So I'm not really interested in cutting that out.
It doesn't eliminate the positions. What it does is cuts a chunk of their hours. So, in other words, we'll program them for example, they provide all the weekend stuff. So they so they'll program in the morning, then they're gone until that evening for lockup. That means that time gap in between would have to be covered by someone else who is going to be on standby, who will be paid in overtime if there is an incident.
Okay, so it's a staff management problem. I mean, correction more than it is anything else. Just having.
We're not cutting it. We're reducing the hours. The hours.
Okay, all right.
But again, the hours in which we would reduce them, because they're critical in the mornings and critical in the evenings. So if I reduce the midday and there's a problem and it's a water issue, then we have to call someone out, and that would probably be going to Public Works or one of my other staff, and that would end up being that would be overtime.
Okay, and that's only on the weekends mostly.
Primarily, our reduction is weekends.
Right, seriously. As far as, I think you and I already talked about the Basin Park and that, what's the cost of having CAL FIRE out there?
Yeah, I talked to Chief Lane, and he doesn't see a fire issue there.
Okay.
But I wanted to just give you a little bit. The landscaping is $11,134. The amount of water that we use is around just under $6,000. That's what it cost. We could look at trying to reduce that significantly, or cut the landscaping, reduce the water a little bit. You're still going to get some stress, and you could still obtain some sort of a cut there. But the maintenance of the arena and those type of things, we wouldn't be doing that anymore.
And what's Chad charging us for the meter over there?
Our cost for that particular meter runs almost $6,000 a year.
$6,000. Okay, I'm just teasing you, Chad. Some meter charges are killing us up in that area. Brian, in the future, and only because that's adjacent to the LMD, this may be a time, and I don't want you to do it now, but maybe you and Dominic could look at that as a future annexation to the LMD on their approval, LMD 4. It's right adjacent to them. I think it would fall into the Lighting and Landscape Act as far as annexation. Something to think about prior, get it off of the thing there. Just throwing ideas out there. Okay, save the money. Let's see, building maintenance. I think here even though we're talking about you're saving pennies at this point. I mean, I really on the long run, but I understand the philosophy of dumping your own trash. Something we had to do too at a station I worked at. Animal control. This is a city that works hard at animal keeping. It's part of our charter. I hate to see that any position. So you're just eliminating a part-time customer clerk?
That's correct.
And you're reducing the overtime budget?
Yes.
And how much of a substantial amount on that last year was?
I think we were right around $20-some thousand for overtime, and I believe our reduction is around $6,000. So we do have some overtime, and standby is still in there, but it could be one of those things that's driven by calls for service. And if the number of calls for services, which change every year, when I first started here, the overtime budget for animal control was $65,000 a year. Okay, and we've gotten it down to 20,000. So we have been managing it. However, it's driven by number of calls for service after hours.
Okay. It's a hard one to swallow, I'll be honest with you, on that one.
The problem is that at mid-year, if we have enough calls if we have calls for services, even if I reduce it, we may have to be bringing it back to you to increase it, because I won't be able to finish the fiscal year depending on how that year goes. So, I mean, we can reduce it, and we'll have to manage and watch it and make sure of it. That's why we identified that we're going to monitor the number of calls we get that come from dispatch and or presented by us by fire or sheriff's department. And we do go out on a lot of calls through dispatch that are when we arrive, and our arrival time is within 30 minutes of the call. And there is no loose horse, there is no injured animal, and that is a 2-hour call out. So our goal is to really try to control that much more, try and get it's hard for a deputy, particularly on a graveyard shift, when they get a call, they go out, call us, we get out, and they have to go to the other call. They can't be there, and by the time they leave, either animals left or the horse, or someone went and got the horse, put it in their backyard, but we've still got the call out. And so we do get a lot of calls for like that. But our objective is to try and work with sheriffs, fire, to try and manage those a little bit better and make that reduction. But again, this is to say that we'll never have, I couldn't tell you. It's a crystal ball, and it's based on it. We're going into our big calls for services right now are rattlesnake calls.
Yeah.
And any resident homes that are along the particular hillsides and towards the open space, almost all of those, 80% of those are rattlesnakes. And so when we go for those are no questions asked, we roll on those. And so that's a big part of our call. So depending on the season is what it gets. But like I said, we'll do our best to try and manage it.
I just don't want to end up like, no disrespect, but Riverside County Animal Control is bare bones, and usually if you get them out there the same day, you're in good shape. So I don't want to be ever there like that, waiting 12 hours for a ACO officer. Brian, on the party partners, and I think Councilman Hannah brought it up, how many residents from Norco actually participate for that? I know you said there wasn't very many.
I registered, and I'm going to look at those who register in the program. I would say probably about 10%. So out of 70, your number is under 10 who are actually residents.
Yeah,
that differs because people can come and.
Well, I know.
The numbers go up sometimes.
And I've seen the buses come in.
Registered in the program before.
I've seen buses and the vans come in from outlying areas, and that is something that we need to find an alternative funding source on. But as long as we continue to fund it, those other groups aren't going to go look for funding. And I mean, it's a tough decision to make, and I enjoy going over there and working with them too, but it's one of those things that it comes by, you have to be hard-nosed about it and say, you know what, sorry, like everything else, we have to find funding, they have to find funding. So I understand that reduction. And I understand I'm glad you clarified the thing about the economic development and the fact that we don't want to eliminate the part-time planner position, because hopefully we'll have a lot of work for him coming up soon. So with that, if no one else got anything, I'm going to open it up to the public for comments. So do we have any cards in this, Cheryl?
No cards.
No cards. Anybody in the audience want to speak about this? Your one term, I'm going to let you do that without a card. If you do, come up and Announce who you are. Seeing none, close it, bring it back to the dais. Greg, do you have anything else? We have to decide what we're going to do with this thing, where we want to do on each one, and what to. Yeah, let's.
One comment regarding the request to defer contributions to equipment replacement. One of the things I've heard from city council members is that we should stretch the time for replacement. By actually deferring the contributions that are supposed to be made, that is what that does. Okay, so we could either go into the fund, get some money to balance the budget, or stop making contributions to the fund. They are essentially the same thing as far as the impact on the budget, and as far as stretching the timing for replacement. If you're not making the annual required contributions in order to replace, the ultimate result of that is you're stretching the time that you need before you can make replacement.
So it's already extending the life of the vehicle.
That's correct. By default. That's
by default. All right. You know, for time, we're going to keep beating this up unless Greg get any more. What I thought about doing is going over each one of these individually and asking what, as a consensus on the council, what do we want to do with them? Keeping in mind the city manager's three options. In other words, eliminate not payment at all, or do a mid-year, and what was the other one? Is do them individually, right?
Yes.
Yeah, we can do them individually. So rather than trying to say, okay, we're not going to do all these at once, and maybe we can just get a consensus on the first one, which was the retired medical benefits, deferred future contributions for the unfunded liabilities. As a council, do we want to dig and just eliminate that altogether? Do we want to wait till mid-year? Or do we want to pay a portion? Greg?
Let's pay a portion. I suggested half, but I think I would go with Andy. Kevin made a good suggestion also, if it was 100,000 or a percentage. I want to keep whatever, let Andy decide what number it is.
Okay.
But I want to stay in the game and moving forward.
Your thoughts, Kevin?
Same.
Berwin?
Same.
Robin? Did we lose you?
Hi, Robin.
Robin, you there?
Join the Navy.
I see. Matt, do we have did you hear me, Robin?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you guys hear me this time?
Yeah, we're good. Did you hear my suggestion on this? Is we're going to take each one of these individually, and we're on the first one with the Retire Medically program right now. Our consensus is to pay a portion of it. And we'll let Andy determine the portion that he thinks he can get.
Yes.
Okay, and I'll agree on that one too.
Or you hear me? So just you guys.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay.
So you agree it's on that, right? Okay, on the next one, the deferred contributions for vehicle replacement.
Yes.
You want to defer that altogether? Robin? Okay. Berwin?
Yes.
Greg?
Yes, but I want us to look at, and not, I want a little more than just, yeah, we'll defer it and by default. I want to see us stretch that out a little bit, and I understand about compromising safety. We don't want to go to that part, but I want us, what I said earlier is to look a little further into that, that internal fund, because I'd like more of an explanation, because I believe there's still a surplus there.
Okay.
Let me make sure get clarification on that, because there are two, extending the life, which is going into the schedule that determines the amount that needs to be collected, and saying instead of 10 years, we are going to stretch it out to 12 years. That is different from actually going into the fund as it is today, looking at the balance in the fund, and actually analyzing it and determining if we stretched it out to 12 years, should we bring some money out of the fund to contribute back to the general fund? I just want to make sure that I understand
close.
which one you're saying.
I'm saying all of it. I believe there's still a surplus. I'd like to see that broken down further, but going with what's in front of us tonight, yes, I agree, delay the contribution to $91,000. Okay.
And what I think he's asking for is to look and see how much we could use in future, correct?
What we can use today to offset our
Offset
deficit.
the other costs, okay. Without jeopardizing the vehicle replacement program in the future.
Correct. But I think we can extend it. I mean, obviously, you stay up on maintenance, you take care of your vehicles, but you run them into the ground.
Yeah.
Okay,
Well, there's some up there, they've ran into the ground.
Well, then...
All right.
Okay.
You got that in?
Yeah, we do.
Okay. Kevin?
Yeah, defer.
Okay, and then I also defer. All right. And the city manager, the eliminating the $3,000 in conference and training. Robin?
I agree.
Berwin?
Yes.
Greg? Yes. Kevin?
Yes.
I say yes. Okay. The city clerk, the $7,000, eliminate a part-time position, overnight training and conferences, and which, yeah, we'll go from there. The $17,000. Greg?
No. Don't eliminate the part-time position.
Okay. You want to separate that, or do you want to?
That could be separated. We could take out, what we think is allocated for training and conferences.
I have that number if you need it.
Okay, what would that number be?
The part-time position is $12,500. That leaves $4,500 for training.
Do you need to be trained up at this point?
Well, for my department, I believe strongly in professional development, so if that is cut, we'll still find ways to get the information that's needed for our department.
So we're looking at $4,500 for overnight training and conferences. Maybe we allow $2,500 of that for continuing education. Cut a couple of $1,000.
So you're going to split it in half, is what you're saying?
Yeah, maybe not overnight training, but continuing education is important, for all of us. So that maybe we just take a few $1,000s out of that. But my main concern is keeping the part-time, or getting you a part-time person.
Kevin, you good with that?
No, I just think just fund the position. I think it's save the $4,000. She has said she can figure out a way to do it, and I think that we do have to make some cuts.
So
I say fund the part-time position, and the rest of it we leave it alone. We don't do it
okay, so
right
fund
now.
the $12,500.
Yeah.
Berwin?
I would do the $12,500 and then, like Cheryl said, the half, $2,500 for training.
Okay, so that's more than what Kevin wanted, so we got
Well, I'll go with that. If you guys really feel strongly, I'm fine with that.
Okay, so we're about $15,000 for that, which isn't a big savings. Robin, your idea?
The same.
Okay, all right, and I'll agree to that. So we'll all get up there, so we're at $12,500 for your position, plus $2,500 for training. Is that what we agreed on? Okay, so it's not a big savings, but it is some. Human resources, $1,500. Kevin?
Eliminated it.
Greg?
Yeah, I'm fine.
Berwin?
No.
Robin?
Yes.
I'll agree to that one. City Attorney, $50,000 reduced funding for code cases.
Before you do anything, just one quick comment, just of interest.
Okay.
While you're doing this, I had my secretary do some quick calculations. So the good news is that it's probably doable without doing too much. That over the past 6 months, the attorney's fees bills from my office, and that's the only thing I can account for. I don't know about that other law firm, are $13,000, and the 6 months prior to that were $29,000. So that it's cut more than half just over the last 6 months.
Okay, so we're still, by reducing 50,000, we've still got a pretty good cushion.
So we were paying him too much in
I know,
2016.
we're setting aside too much for him, okay?
Make me work too hard.
Sorry, I'm just kidding.
I'll start down there with you.
No, I'm fine with it.
Robin?
I'm fine with that cut.
Okay. Greg?
I'm fine with the cut as long as it doesn't get us back into where these dragged out.
Do you want to revisit that in mid-year?
Yeah, it's more, yeah, my
Just
time
revisit back in
concerns
mid-year?
that, and correct me if I'm wrong, Andy, that some of these cases were dragging out, and that's one of the reasons we went to an outside attorney?
Yeah, there was prior to me becoming a city manager.
Microphone.
Actually, there was a time that the prior administration had made a decision that it was better to go with outside city prosecutor handling court cases than the city attorney. So that is the origin of that. Obviously, that has changed. That we look at. I currently review these code cases with the code enforcement officer as well as the planning director, and determine, depending on the case and where we believe the strengths are, and give it out to including the city attorney and the outside prosecutor.
Okay. So this.
Yeah, I'm fine with the cut, Mayor.
Okay.
Of 50,000. I want us to watch the time impact on it.
Okay,
so they don't drag.
Well, that's why I said, do you want us to look and reevaluate this thing come in November? I mean, next year?
It should be evaluated by the city manager when he does it monthly or whenever he
that was
reviews
fine.
it
Then
with
you can bring it
staff.
back to us then.
Yep.
All right.
I know the specific case Andy was talking about because I was on the planning commission at the time when we went to outside counsel.
I think so. Robin, did you already say yes on this one? Yeah.
So I'm for the cut, but I'm a little bit intrigued because what I'm hearing from the city attorney is that our outside attorney is charging more than what our inside attorney charges, and what I'd like to do is revisit that at the 6 months, but also maybe we need to think outside the box. If you could just look at that for us, Andy.
I'm not willing to make that statement here today.
If you would just look at it for us, just to see if it's a way to save money, but I'm for it, yes.
Okay, I agree on that one. So we're going to eliminate that part. Fiscal support and services, the $20,000 reduced training for advanced fund business license upgrade in fiscal year 2018. Robin, let's start with you.
That's fine with me.
Berwin?
Yes.
Kevin?
Yep.
Greg? Yes, me too. So $20,000 is done. Recreational services, $21,500. Reduce part-time staffing, eliminate conferences and training, negative service impact, less drivers, blah, blah, blah. And we put the commission meeting every other month. Kevin, I'll start with you.
I don't want to reduce the part-time staffing in terms of the drivers, but conferences I'm fine with, training I'm fine with, and I guess the commission meeting every other month I'm fine with.
So Brian, we talking about on the differences if we keep the drivers?
Yeah.
How much?
I have a number, that's $13,611.
So you're actually only going to cut $8,000 some dollars out of this thing, doing that. That's all we're saving. Kevin?
I'm good with that. I think the drivers are important.
That's the part-time staffing, okay. Greg, your thoughts on it?
Yeah, I'm fine.
Fine with keeping the driver, the part-time staff?
Keeping the drivers. My concern with any of the part-time staff is, and what Brian said, they're busy in the morning, but then you're going to send them home and tell them to come back in the afternoon. I'm going to work for you for a week or two, and then I'm going to go look for another job.
A real job?
Okay. Yeah, because you're going to jerk me around on my hours. I'm not going to hang with that, so you're going to lose the experience, and then you'll be retraining again. So that's kind of my reason with keeping all of the part-time staffing.
Okay. So just so you're sure, your part-time staffing cost you $13,000 is what you said? Mm-hmm. So that we're at least going to fund that part of it.
I mean, we're losing a pound to save a penny.
Yeah.
So,
Berwin, your thoughts?
I'm fine with that.
Robin?
Fine with that, but I think I want to revisit the Parks and Rec Commission meetings about halfway through the year to make sure they're still having enough time to get their work done.
The rest of us good with that?
yeah, good with that.
All right, I'm in agreement. Go ahead, Greg.
Because we had that on the Planning Commission also, that if you have items that need to come up, you can always call a special meeting. So as long as that's always available, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Where am I at? This is park maintenance. This is the $42,600, reduce water usage, reduce contractual, less maintenance, eliminate basin park, things like that. Would you just propose to close the basin park at this point, or just look for volunteers to do it for you?
I'm always open to volunteers. It's just if I can get them, as you know, Mr. Mayor. And they'll stay long enough after I train them. But at this point in time, and one reason we looked at this is that I can actually close that park off from a security standpoint versus other parks, because it's fenced all the way around. And that's why we looked at that as probably the least impact if I had to look at something.
Okay. All right, we'll see what we can do. Your thoughts, Kevin?
This makes me kind of sad because this is a very heavily used park, and it was one of those things way before any of us got on council that just wasn't handled right. And what would it cost if we ever had the money to bring that park back? Would it be a hardship? What would it cost? I know when you close a park, to bring it back is very expensive.
I remember that this particular location is almost only arena.
Yeah, no, I know it well. I'm just wondering.
So you're really talking about landscaping on the slopes, and we can try to manage that a little bit, but we just wouldn't be dealing with any of the maintenance in that area.
No, I'm for closing it. I hate closing parks, and this just was supposed to have a funding source, and it didn't happen, so that's all. But yeah, I'm for it.
Greg?
Yeah, I think we could go ahead and reduce services on it, but we're not talking about closing it.
Yeah.
I'm reading this as we're going to reduce contractual maintenance. It is already fenced.
Yeah, the contract maintenance maintains the slopes and the arena. Here's our problem. If we don't maintain the arena in some way, then that arena becomes dangerous. Mm-hmm. And if, as Ted mentioned, if I had volunteers, I would implement our volunteer program to assist us with that. But finding qualified volunteers who will do the training and stay with us long enough that they can be in there every week to work that arena, that becomes the challenge. And
you got Ted and Ed.
But what you're saying, if you're going to close it, are you just going to stop all water usage?
Yeah, this particular reduction would be, we would turn off the water, we would lock the gates, and we would do no maintenance at all in that facility.
Okay, Robin. Brian, my understanding is you're reducing the water usage, not shutting off the water completely, because you have a hillside. Because you have a hillside that you need to water. Otherwise, we will have a fire danger on there.
Well, even because it's so well established, and we had this discussion with the park superintendent and the battalion chief, they didn't feel that it would. I can still go over there and hand water it some, and I don't think we're going to have that kind of much of an impact. And we may have to do that if we're starting to see stress or hot spots. But that's all we would do. It would become, we'd go out and manage it by going to the valve or the controller and turning it on for a little while and then turning it off.
Okay, that's
and
what
then
you mean
dealing
by
with-
that.
That's,
Okay.
that's how we would manage it. But for most purposes, it would not be under contract for maintenance.
Okay. Greg, anything else?
No, I'll go along with that, but as long as it's like what we had in LMD 2 or whatever, we're going to let all the trees die, and that wasn't the right decision, so we go back and now we'll water the trees a little bit. So as long as we're still going to maintain life there of the plants, that if reduce water, I'm fine with that.
Okay.
Berwin?
You're talking about just locking the arena up totally?
Actually, I would lock the gate going down into the arena, and you wouldn't have any access there because there's actually a fenced gate, so you can't even get into the location.
On the top
with
you
that.
can, Brian. You can get down on the top.
Okay.
What,
Then we would lock the whole thing down.
Okay.
I hadn't been over there in 3 or 4 years, 5 years probably, to ride. What's the ground made out of over there, Ted?
It's just DG, and it's, if you don't
Some
maintain
DG
it,
and native.
if you don't maintain it, you'll have an asphalt parking lot.
Okay. Okay, well, I guess we'll catch a lot of guff on this.
I'll be honest with you, it's not heavily used except for a few people who live over there. So,
All right.
unfortunately, so I'll agree to that one. Yes, go ahead.
This may be a silly question, but the Basin Park is a flood channel.
Correct.
Okay. Is there some way you can make flood control contribute to this? To make an outside source
I believe
to maintain their flood channel or flood control?
I believe when the area was dedicated originally with the developer and the agreement that Riverside County Flood Control in that property conveyance puts the full responsibility of that and that channel on the city of Norco. I think, let me explain that. The channel, there's a small channel in there. They'll come in and do what they have to do, but only in that channel. The retention basin, okay, which that channel will fill up and then actually move into that detention basin, that is a responsibility of the city.
And we know that for a fact.
I was in that meeting. I remember it. The guy said, "What, do you want to put a park there? Well, just fence it. You don't want to take care of it." I was in that meeting. So as a
I'm
park
just looking for a way to skin the cat there.
Well, that's a great idea.
Well, by the way, we'll look at it, but I'm pretty sure that it's conveyed that way.
And Greg, that's why I said it's, maybe look at one of the LMDs up there to try to do that. All right, so we're senior citizens, $30,200 to eliminate party partners. Robin, I'll start with you.
I'm fine with the looking for other sources of funding for party partners, but I think we need to keep part-time staff.
Okay, so what would that, Brian, what would that save us? If we eliminate the party partners, but you keep your staff, what are we saving on that?
The actual costs for the
you said
for that
earlier
part-time
17,000 was
yeah, $17,378 is the part-time staff person for party partners.
But that person strictly works for party partners, correct?
Party partners, and then they back up in the office as needed. They're there every day to do their programming, and they back up in the office, but their primary responsibility is the programming for the party partners.
Well, I think what Robin, unless, correct me if I'm wrong, what you wanted to know is what are the actual costs of that staffer for party partners alone, and how much time do they spend? That $17,000 is just for party partners time?
The bulk of it is for party partners.
So actually, if we eliminate that $30,000, we're going to lose that part-time position, correct?
That is correct.
Because you don't have enough time or work for them other than that? Is that what you're saying?
Oh, no, there is time available there, but we only have a limited number of part-time hours to operate the front counter, any of the other senior needs or special events. This person helps out wherever they are, but their purpose is to go in and program for party partners, solicit for sponsors, and do all of those other things that it takes them, that they spend their 20 hours a week doing.
Okay. Robin, did it help on the clarification on that?
I guess so. So then if we cut that position entirely, are we going to shortchange any of the staff at the senior center? Like, did that person do 1 hour a week where they were backfilling, or 2 hours a week, or what kind of backfilling were they doing?
Great question, and they backfill as needed, but as far as an impact to the other parts of the operation, it would have impact, or if someone's out, it would have impact, but their primary role is that. But remember, when they work there and in the counter, if someone comes, they're dealing with whatever that need might be from a senior. If it was related to housing or medical or whatever, they're pulled to those resources. If someone is out, we're very limited there with staffing. So you pull one person out of the equation, or if someone's off sick or whatever, then you're the only person there is the supervisor at that time, handling everything. So to answer your question, that I would imagine that probably they get absorbed a couple hours a week that is taken into the office and assistance there, and the rest is in dealing with the Party Partners program, and that can vary, but that's what their role is there. However, it doesn't mean that they're not assisting in backfilling everywhere else.
Okay.
So I guess for me, just cut it all. And a common theme that I kind of see with is a need for volunteers. And so maybe we need to do a new campaign to ask for people to volunteer for stuff in the city, and maybe have a plan of attack for doing that to make up for some of the stuff.
Okay. You good? All right, yes. Berwin?
I'll agree. Just go ahead and eliminate it on my thoughts, and try to get some volunteers to work in there. I'm sure you can find some that.
Just so everyone knows, we do have a volunteer program, a very strong volunteer program. But where we may not have some of the technical skills is with those volunteers. So that is something that we could work on trying to obtain. But we have our STAR program is made up of all volunteers, and they help out with everything from the food to that. But from that senior center during the week is a heavily impacted activity area, and if you go there on Tuesday, you're lucky to find a parking space within a block. One, because that's bingo day, but we also have food services, we have exercise program, art programs that are constantly going on that we're working and programming. So any other reductions other than this, then you're in jeopardy of keeping the doors open at that facility.
I bet you can find some volunteers, though, that'll be interested in that. Thank you.
Kevin? Cut it. Greg?
You're saying cut the whole 30,000?
Yeah, the 30,000, yeah, 200.
You know, boy, as much as I like to cut on staff, I just can't bring myself to, we're looking at $2 million. To me, $30,000 to help 78 or 80 individual challenged people and our seniors is money well spent. No, it's my opinion.
And Greg, I agree with you on that. Unfortunately, it's one of those things that I go back to. If we don't fund it and we can't afford the staff for it, then these other organizations that use our facilities need to step up to the plate and say, you know what? And maybe it would be the push for them if someone at Peppermint Ridge or one of those others say, oh, you know what, we'll take that over now since you're not going to do it. So let's
There are 3 group homes. We'll reach out to them and see
if they want to, if they want to help. If maybe they can you can work out your magic with some deal over there, or they can help fund that program with the 3 group homes.
Mike Ryan, who's the chair of that board over there, he said give him a couple of days and he's going to be looking at some funding sources. So you know Mike, so reach out to him. He's also on the, well, you know Mike Ryan, right? Yeah.
Let's see if we can find other, because it's one program I hate to see us leave, but at the same time we have to think about the budget. The building maintenance, Berwin, start with you.
I think if we do a little bit better job of monitoring thermostat, making some of those cuts that Brian recommended, I'm fine with that. I'm, again, going back to part-time or any of that, I'm not in favor of that.
And Brian, if we keep the part-time staff, how much difference does it make?
There is no part-time staff cut here.
Oh,
It's
the
contractual services.
Well, it says reduced part-time staffing on our paperwork.
And that might be just a carryover. But
Okay, all right.
And not in the 736.
Okay, so, all right. So, Robin, did you hear that?
Yeah, is that where the contractual staff is at, though, in that building maintenance?
That's correct.
Okay, yeah, so I'm fine with that.
Okay.
Cutting that.
Berwin?
Well, I'll agree with Robin on that. We don't need to cut all the maintenance out on those buildings till they go down in a hurry.
Okay. Kevin? Greg?
You can cut it to a point, but with reducing electricity, if employees have to start bringing in fans and extension cords, Brian.
Then we'll revisit.
Okay, there should be a range of comfort. All right. That's all I have to say on that.
It's pretty hot in the Veterans Committee the other day, by the way.
Brian, let's reduce it and let's bring it back, especially at the end of summer, see how we deal with it.
The end of summer.
Yeah, by
How about
then
the
we'll
beginning of summer?
Yeah, but let's look at it so we keep the human comfort up and the work production, so that they're not walking around here in shorts and. Okay.
And Eric's you'll empty your own garbage cans and mop your floors.
We'll be happy to do what we can to help.
You're the best.
Eric, do you have any court workers that you have down on that come to your facility? No. Okay. And we don't use any court workers here either, do we? Not in the city building.
Because the sheriff's area is so, it's sort of a protected area. So.
Okay. I'm just looking at avenues, but it still takes a staff to walk around with them at the same time, so it doesn't help anybody. Okay, yeah, let's cut that out for right now. Animal control, Greg?
I'm okay with that, with Brian's explanation.
Okay. Kevin?
I kind of want to revisit this because I don't want to again, be pound foolish to save a penny. I want to make sure that we do have some after-hours service as much as possible.
The after hours, obviously, I think if we start running into a number of calls for services, then I'll bring it to Andy's attention. We'll bring it back to you to take a look at and see where we are. The one problem here, and I just want to make sure you understand, is that when we eliminate this one part-time position, that covers part of the weekend. So that means an officer comes in and covers the morning and doesn't respond to calls until the afternoon.
Yeah, I don't want to cut the part.
Just so you understand the complexity of
how much is the part-time position?
It's $14,000, and that clerk covers part of it, but also covers those weekends and those days. So what I have to do is I have to backfill that with with somebody to cover that part of that. So we can manage it. It just means that it depends on what number of calls come in. They may have to wait a little longer than normal if someone from the office has to cover those particular calls that would be in the field.
So Brian, and I know you want the full, we're looking at the full amount. So if we just eliminated the part-time, just reduce the overtime budget and certain emergency response times, then you need $14,000 for that part-time employee?
That's correct.
So we would eliminate $7,500?
That's what I want.
Is that what?
That's what I want.
Greg, how does that suit you? Just Berwin?
Yeah.
Robin?
Yes.
Okay, so you save your part-time employee up there and we'll deal with it. We'll go to economic development. $15,000, eliminate travel and related materials. And I guess most of this is going to be on Wilkman, reduction of Wilkman's contract and part of Roger's travel. And okay. Okay. Berwin, I'll start with you.
So eliminated.
Robin?
I agree.
Kevin?
Yes.
Greg?
Well, portion of it, if we have, with Bill Wilkman, if we have a need that comes up with the Navy in that, I think we can readjust, reposition, correct? But my other concern is, and Kevin had mentioned it a little earlier, was that we need to still get that message out with our public relations. And so if we're going to eliminate travel and material, how do we can get our message out? That's what I'm having a little difficulty with.
Two separate things. One is we do have an economic development consultant that is helping us recruit, attract, and retain businesses in town, into town. And I believe the number of hours that we have earmarked for that is sufficient for what needs to be done. Now, that is separate from the city wanting to have a public relations officer, outside public relations professional services to help the city with communications, which may involve promotion of businesses in town and things of that nature, but also help the city to be more effective in public relations communication with the residents as well as businesses in town. Certainly, if we want to go that route, we need to allocate a separate budget for it and hire a PR firm to help us with that.
Then maybe I misunderstood Kevin's comment. I thought what you had mentioned earlier was just more with the economic development, getting that messaging out.
Yeah, but I understand Andy's point. I think one of the things, I think that we need to begin to make people aware of the fact that, one, we have this incredible double arena up in, we call Ingalls Park. I think that people are not aware of how much business we actually already attract, and we do almost nothing to attract the business other than what Roger's doing. I think that people don't realize the improvements, they don't realize the street improvements, and I think that even Silver Lakes, I think the negative publicity surrounding that is absurd. And we go to these ICSC conferences and people are like, holy cow, how did Norco do this? And I just think we're missing an opportunity when you look at Eastville. So if it's with his department or with the specialty department, I just think Ingalls Park should be something that we should be totally proud of. But I get your point, and I think it's something that we also need to sit down with the Norco Area Chamber of Commerce and have a discussion with them to see how they're willing to participate in that also. So if it's not in this budget, I'd like to maybe look at it somewhere else, but find a way to get the message out that when you sell a house in the city of Norco, you're not going to get the asking price, you're going to get more. And I just think those are things people need to know.
I'm listening to all you. I'd be interested in cutting that $15,000 in half to make it at $7,500 as at least a budget, and that'll help Roger at least part way through rather than cutting the whole thing. Yeah, how do you feel about that, Greg?
Well, Mayor, I thought that the lion's share of that was to be reduced under historic resources consulting.
Is that correct, Andy?
That's correct.
So,
And I'm okay with that at this point in time.
okay, you want to revisit
on
it?
that. But if the need arises, if we have any issues with the Navy or the hotel, that we can always go back to that.
You want to leave it in there and bring it back mid-year for right now? We can bring it back in our budget adjustments in January.
No, I'd go ahead and take, Roger, you're okay, you're not going to travel in the next 6 months, are you?
Okay.
So go ahead and take it. I mean.
But revisit it when you need it.
Yeah.
Come back to us.
And the only thing coming up with Bill Wolkman is if it may be a Navy issue, but it may also be that we simply have, and I spoke to him today, and he said that it's a very minor adjustment to our current application to revisit that, so.
Okay. All right, Robin, Berwin, you guys good with that?
Right?
Yeah.
Robin, you
Yes.
good? Okay. All right, so you got that one. We'll keep the 15,000, well, we'll eliminate the 15,000, revisit it later on. And the planning, the 1,200, eliminate travel planning.
Yes.
Greg, Kevin, Robin, we're all in say yes.
Yes.
You can't see them shaking their heads. And then the sheriff's, the 132,000, cut that out of the CSO position. Berwin, I'm gonna start with you.
I thought you'd said earlier that we're going to let you and Eric decide about finding one to fill that vacancy. I thought we was going to keep that in there.
I agree with you. Robin?
I want to keep it.
Greg?
It's our number one priority, and when we first asked to have this funded, that's what we committed to.
Okay. Kevin? Keep it. It's your marching orders. Keep it. Okay. And then, Andy, you said something earlier about the planning budget, and that was the part-time planner position that was on the original. So that is not in our budget.
It's not in the budget. Have been this evening. That will be added back to the budget.
Okay. I just want to make sure that, Greg, you understand. They're going to add it back on the next budget. Kevin, you good with that? Berwin?
Yes.
And Robin, you good with that?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Andy, anything else?
I think we did it enough.
You got enough?
Yeah,
We pounded it out. With that, I'll adjourn it. Thank you very much.
no, we actually have one of our presentation.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No.
Reopen it.
Unless the city council wants to skip on that.
It's 6 o'clock.
Yeah, well.
Well, go ahead, Andy.
Yeah, at the last two budget sessions ago, Councilmember Bash asked a question: why has our budget grown from fiscal year 2013 to 2018? We've put together some bullet points to try to explain that. First and foremost, before I just quickly run down these bullet points, I want to make it certain that I'm not sure why 2013 fiscal year was chosen, because certainly the budget that we had prior to fiscal year 2013, for example, in fiscal year 2008, 2009, the budget was nearly $19 million. And of course, fiscal year 2012, 2013, maybe he chose that because that is where we were at a rock bottom in terms of having revenues to fund city services. This was coming out of the recession, and we were barely having enough money, and that led, of course, to the contracting out of the fire and emergency medical services. So this was just a rebalancing year for us, when that budget was taken down essentially from a high of $19 million to $13.9 million in fiscal year 2013. And of course, today, FY 2017-18, estimated actual expenditures is about $20 million. So depending on what the point of reference is, whether it's the FY 2013 or the FY 2008-2009, the budget has either grown by $6.1 million or by $1 million since 2008-2009. So again, as I stated earlier, we were recovering from the Great Recession when the expenditures were reduced, deferred, or essentially frozen. That's where we were in fiscal year 2013. In terms of what has changed since 2013, we have seen an increase in total salaries and benefits, $1.5 million. That consists of three components: salary adjustments and staffing changes. I think we have added about 3 positions to the general fund budget over that period of time. And then the rest of it are negotiated salary, cost of living adjustment increases for employees, totaling $752,000. And then another $707,000 is associated with the increase in CalPERS pension cost, and the $48,000 associated with increases in medical insurance for active employees. So that's the that totals $1.5 million in total salaries and benefits increase from fiscal year 2013 to fiscal year 2018. Conferences, memberships, and training. Again, those items have increased due to, again, we have restored those items that were non-existent in fiscal year 2013. So that was for $40,000 increase in that expenditure category. Services and supplies has increased by $255,000 from fiscal year 2013 to 2018. The bulk of that, $176,000, is from retiree medical insurance. There was a one-time expenditure increase in the 2018 budget for software of $25,000. And then special departmental, we have had some increases in DUI supplies, animal food, and miscellaneous items since 2013. Utilities have increased by $365,000. The bulk of that, $285,000, is water costs, and essentially because of the increases in water and the fact that the city general fund didn't used to contribute for water payment to the water fund, and now it does. Electric charges, utilities, other utilities such as electric, have increased by $79,000 during that period of time. Of course, the biggest increase is increase related to contractual services, mainly public safety. The CAL FIRE contract has increased by $1.2 million. The Sheriff's Law Enforcement contract has increased by $1.6 million. And then other contractual services such as legal, city attorney, park maintenance, janitorial, and other services have seen a total increase of about $497,000. And some other professional services have also increased for an aggregate of $3.3 million increase in that category. Quickly, there are some other increases in the 2018 budget. There is a one-time increase for materials and supplies related to our community outreach engagement efforts. Internal service funds, again, during the budget crisis, we basically eliminated these items, reduced them significantly, and those have now been restored, increasing. Equipment replacement charges have gone up by $39,000. Information technology operations and equipment charges, $25,000, and insurance and liability claims have gone up by $102,000. And finally, in the 2018 budget, There is a $487,000 that is due to a one-time charge for park improvements.
Very good.
Any questions, Vandy? Greg? Kevin? Berwin?
No, very good.
Robin? Any questions of staff? Robin, you still there?
Yes, I'm here.
You good? You
Yes.
good? Okay, all right, I don't have any questions. If nobody has any questions or anything further, thank you, Andy, for that. It was explained a lot. I will now adjourn. We're in closed session.